Good morning, one and all. So, yesterday we have seen the point establishing your cloud vision, okay, in which we have seen the concepts of defining your cloud vision, then defining your cloud vision research and tools, okay, and related some resources we have seen in our last lecture. So, today we are going to see the building ROI from cloud computing, okay. So, let me share the screen. So, okay. So building ROI from cloud computing, that part we are going to see today. So what is exactly ROI? So ROI is nothing but the uh, return on investment. So whatever you have invested for one particular thing, like suppose you are starting any new business, so how much return you are getting out of that, so that will be calculated under or how much returns or profit you are getting out of that particular investment is nothing but the ROI. Any kind of business you have started, and suppose you have invested say 1 lakh rupees, and say from that monthly you are getting 5,000 something, so that will be your return on investment. So what is the ROI for the cloud computing? So that we are going to see now. Okay, so how many number of students are there? Very less number of students are there. Still one message came from our project coordinator, that is update your project work done status in this shared Excel sheet. Okay, so to get or update accordingly your marks related to the project term work and all. Okay, so update your project work done status in the shared Excel sheet as early as possible for further processing. Fine. I will announce it once again at the end of the lecture. Okay, so cloud computing for business, that and building ROI from cloud computing, that part we are going to see now. So we have seen many businesses, they have addressed some emerging trends through actions to drive the cost returns or cost reductions and leverage IT service providers adoption of cloud style services. So many industries or many industry organizations and some leading IT suppliers of the software, hardware, and the other kind of services are seeking to address their customer needs, which have vigorously evaluated and followed a cloud style strategy. So the challenges and issues are in the transition from the current traditional IT to the new potential capabilities of cloud computing. They must be expressed in a language that end users can understand and relate to the investment, cost improvement, or some business performance. So, this return of investment is perhaps the most widely used measure of financial success in business. Just now we have seen what is exactly the ROI and all. So, if you have a proposed or some proposal to use cloud computing in place of in-house IT, so this is how you and others will want to assess it. How do you do this? what are the qualities of cloud computing that affect ROI? So that we are going to see now. So ROI is the proportionate increase in the value of investment over a period of time. So it can be measured in variety of different ways, but there are just 4 basic ways to improve it. That is, decrease the investment, increase the revenue, decrease the costs, and make the return faster. So using cloud computing, you can achieve any of these, but you cannot achieve them all at the same time. So it is the relationship between the factors that counts rather than the absolute values. So if you move to the public cloud, you generally decrease the investment but increase the cost. With private cloud, it is other way around. That is, you can improve or worsen ROI either way depending on your revenue and speed of return. Revenue can be increased by improving the delivered features and quality, which enable a higher price to be changed, or by operating on a larger scale. But improvements in features, quality, and scale generally also mean higher costs. You must get the balance right. So just looking at cloud computing from a technical infrastructure point of view is potentially missing the wider picture of the impact of technology on the business. So overall, what matters is defining the value to the business. Value can be defined in many ways. It doesn't just mean the financial values, but can also mean customers' value, seller value, broker value, market brand or market brand value, and corporate value. So these aspects should not be neglected. So how does cloud computing continue or contribute to ROI? So there are a number of fundamental drivers that impact on investment, revenue, cost, and timing that can be positively influenced by using the cloud services. So they relate to productivity, speed, size, and quality. So here we are going to describe how each of these drivers contribute to the ROI and shows how to use them to corporate and compare cloud and traditional IT solutions, and how to monitor them to maintain and build ROI from the cloud computing. So here in the graph, you can see the capacity utilization curve used by the Amazon Web Services, that is AWS. Okay, so this is used to illustrate the advantages of cloud computing. So here this figure uses a similar curve to illustrate the central idea of utility-based services so enabled through on-demand provisioning to meet actual usage. So the model illustrates the central idea around utility-based services enabled through on-demand provisioning to meet actual usage. Okay, so the effect is quality, or the effect is equally clear in capacity utilization chart. That is by first year of use of its new cloud-based system. So for most of the years, the in-house system would have been used at a small fraction of its capacity, but in the peak month, it would not have sufficient capacity and business would have been lost. So resource utilization, you can see over here. The resources that are sized to handle peak loads are under utilization of peak times. Also, in many enterprises, servers are dedicated to specific functions or departments and can be massively underutilized form. So it is commonplace for departments to request new servers for new projects, even though other departments have capacity that is going begging. So cloud computing enables resources to be shared by different loads and thus improves utilization. The sharing can be between enterprises with public or community cloud or within an enterprise. So with private cloud, the rewards can be high. So as an indication of what can be achieved, enterprises that adopt private cloud as a solution are reporting the server consolidation ratios of as much as up to 12 to 1. So at the infrastructure level, resource sharing means supporting many platforms and applications on the same physical resources using the virtualization techniques described under IaaS. Okay, so at the platform and application levels, providers can achieve resource sharing through multi-tenancy. So for PaaS, this means the application from many clients running on the same operating system. For SaaS, it means clients sharing the same application instance. And by doing this, using specially designed application architectures, they can achieve better utilization of underlying assets than if each client uses either a separate application instance on the same operating system or another virtualized instance sharing hardware. So, so this particular structure is being shown here in the figure. So you can use this diagram to show how the return on investments based on illustration by AWS that is related to the capacity is been shown. So here in the graph, that is by capacity versus time, the graph is been shown. So this is the dotted line which shows you the predicted demand. Okay, and with the traditional hardware, okay, like one server and other systems that are using the data from the server like that. So suppose, so this is shown by this particular line, then actual demand is shown by this dark line, and the cloud capacity is shown by this blue line over here. Okay, and here the large capacity expenditure is being shown as you go with the time. So after some means when the cloud computing services were started, from that point, previously the traditional hardware system was in boom at that time, where the cloud services or cloud capacity was lagging. But as the time goes, the traditional hardware was like not in use, whereas the cloud capacity you can see here with the blue line, that is increasing and increasing, and the capacity that is the storage capacity is being increased day by day as you go with the time. Okay, and the actual demand is absolutely fulfilled by your cloud capacity that is being shown here in the graph. Okay, so you can use this particular graph to explain your answer. Coming to the next, and that is this one. Okay, so usage based on the pricing. So usage based pricing will translate the higher utilization achieved by the providers into lower costs for the consumers. So the benefit to this is not that they are using less resource, it is that they are paying for less resource. Their cost curve follows their resource utilization, resulting in a lower total a than for a dedicated underused system. So usage-based pricing for software licenses gives similar benefits to SaaS users. So traditional licensing associated with ownership, number of users, support, and maintenance cost and services leads to the capacity utilization gaps similar to those for hardware resources. So these gaps are being addressed by the pay-as-you-go kind of a principle of on-demand cloud computing, which is changing the software cost model. So that is also been shown here in the figure or in the graph, we can say. So pay as you go, how it works. So that is been shown with the graph. The shaded region will show you the excess license, unfulfilled demands and all. Okay. So these gaps are being addressed by pay-per-use kind of a principle that we have seen. So software cost optimization. So user value, the graph that is for function point volume to the user volume is shown here. So specialization and scale. So in addition to the advantages of load sharing, cloud computing can result in a lower IT costs because of skill specialization and economics of scale. So a large cloud provider or private cloud division within a corporation can be much better at providing IT services than a small IT department, and it can amortize the cost of problem solving over a large user base. The problems experienced by one user can once they have been solved, be proactively fixed for all the other users of the cloud service. Then speed. So getting this more quickly, the second major way in which cloud computing contributes the ROI is through improved speed of operation. Okay, so time of deployment, here it will be shown in the diagram again. So cloud computing provides an increase in provisioning the speed, which enables the enterprises to acquire the resources they need for faster. And because resources configurations are visible, it speeds up the choice of multi-sourced resources, which can dramatically cut the time to deployment of new products and services. So this applies to application and platform resources as well as to the physical infrastructure. So elastic provisioning creates a new way for enterprises to scale their IT to enable business to expand. The compression of provisioning time from weeks to hours, for example, demonstrated by cloud computing providers is a means to rapid execution that is not just about saving time, but is also defining a new business operating model. So organizations can review and develop business plans, and they then deploy infrastructure and services in a more rapid and proactive way. So customization and deployment, testing and support can also be seen in a new light with the provision of IT services in a dynamic fashion targeted at business needs. Okay, so you can see this graph for that here. Okay, so in the graph it is been shown here. So YY will provide a prime example of the ability of cloud computing to cut the time to the market. The company's founder was a college whiz kid with a great idea, using cloud services which were free for the low usage. That was all he wanted. He could quickly build a proof of concept program to demonstrate the idea to potential backers. So with a ready to use cloud development platform, there was no time wasted on buying, installing, and setting up the hardware and software. So production version could be tested in their deployment environment on the cloud. So with no need to create special test bed systems. The time from concept to launch was dramatically reduced, enabling the product to keep ahead of potential competition. So lifetime cost model. Here the speed of cost reduction is being shown. Here the graph of cost to time is shown in the diagram. So increased speed of execution has a positive impact on lifetime cost models. Typically, cost is reduced over the lifetime of a product or service as the depreciation cost of purchased assets increased, and as efficiencies are introduced, the speed of cost reduction can be much higher using cloud computing than traditional investment and divestment of IT assets, as shown here in the figure. So this higher rate of cost reduction means that profitably increases more quickly, giving shorter payback times and increased ROI. Then IT asset management. So as well as accelerating business process execution, cloud computing speeds up the process of IT asset management. So the use of IT has become an enduring feature in all the organizations today. The investment in data, knowledge, and infrastructure assets and software now represent the lifeblood operations for many businesses. So, but many enterprises have IT asset portfolios that do not reflect their real requirements. The issue of cost of ownership are often decoupled from the choices made during the selection of new IT and the impact on the long-term running and maintenance of these IT services and subsequent business usage is not properly considered. Technology design choices and purchasing are often done by the strategic or tactical contractual purchasing based on the project requirements, with little consideration for optimizing running and maintenance over the wide system life cycle. But the cost of maintenance and modifications often represent a significant part of the asset life cycle, beyond the initial provisioning. So the ability to design and provision for run so that the choices of IT procurement are aligned with the best options and performance for long-term operation has long been an ideal goal of business and IT. But while technical trends such as object orientation, SOA, and Web 2.0 have brought functional improvements, the improvements in runtime infrastructure support have always been elusive. A key aspect of moving to cloud computing is the ability to select hardware, software, and services from defined design configuration to run in production. So it bridges the design time and runtime divide and optimizes service performance. So patches and upgrades to the cloud resources are provided as part of the service. Cloud computing facilitates optimization of the total asset portfolio. It can help an enterprise to achieve the goal of a more cost-effective asset management lifecycle process for the IT portfolio to optimize both the design and runtime performance. Then coming to the next, that is the size, which is breaking new ground. So size, the combination of lower cost and faster delivery market makes the product services more competitive, which generates more business and leads to a large scale operation. But what makes cloud computing really exciting is that its potential effect on business is not just incremental improvement, but it will be disruptive transformation, which it enables through new operating models. So entering in the new markets, cloud computing removes the need for additional infrastructure to test and enter the markets. A key advantage, particularly for small to medium-sized organizations, it enables the business to pursue new and existing markets by rapid entry and exit of the products and services. So it enables the enterprises to land and expand in markets with an infrastructure and service capacity that grow with the business. So existing and new markets can be attacked and entered through speculative and well-timed intervention to exploit and grow business performance. Then high value services, internet services such as Facebook, MySpace, Flickr, YouTube, Twitter have become part of our everyday social interaction and business. Businesses are increasingly making use of IT-based collaboration services for communication, information exchange, and virtual meetings. So in many cases, these are not provided by in-house IT, they are cloud services. So use of these services can transform business operation. So from a provider's point of view, these are prime examples of simple high value services that are massively successful but they do not have traditional price-based revenue models. They are often free to use. Advertising is one way in which such services can obtain revenue. Another is through offering additional annuity services, essential or useful add-ons that are paid for, just as many printer companies make money from the ink cartridges rather than from the printers themselves, isn't it? So the long tail, at the other end of the scope and complexity scale, there are many cases of companies, large and small, that can enter and develop service offerings through a long tail. Long tail approach enabled by cloud computing. So for any product, most people will be satisfied by a small set of standard features, but there is a long tail of potential users that require customization. So the ready availability of machine intelligence in the cloud enables this customization to be delivered at a lower cost, so that serving the long tail becomes an economic proposition. Then becoming a cloud provider. The ability to become a cloud provider is one way in which new business opportunities arise. So within a particular cloud-based business ecosystem, there will be many opportunities for specialist service providers. So these may include opportunities to provide services that are people-based, as well as IT-based and PaaS. Then coming to the next, that is quality, that is improved margin from the better service. So increase the scale and scope of operation delivers more revenue. Efficiencies resulting from better use of assets and faster operation deliver lower costs. The result is bigger margin and more profit, which is shown here in the diagram. So competitive pressures, you will not be alone in adopting the cloud computing. Your competitors will adopt it too, bringing pressure to cut price and reduce your precious margin. So how do you deal with these changes? Is like the provisioning of cloud computing, while initially seen as a disruptive technology influence on both buyers and seller prospects, is now evolving into trade-off between the cost, arbitrage, and added value QoS. So in the market driven by cost, there can be intense competition between the participants to make the cost savings. So this is often seen in a negative context, as the lower cost and margins are seen as a like detriment to the principles overall. So massively scalable services from cloud computing providers have the effect of driving down the costs and prices, as the dynamics of competition are shifted by the pressure of the potentially rapid cost reductions. And then the importance of quality. The counterbalance is the quality of service which, taken in comparison to the cost of the service, characterizes the value delivered. So adopting the cloud computing paradigm drives cost down through the greater efficiencies of working capital. So some of the gains must go into the efforts to improve the quality if margins are to be maintained. So the differentiator of cloud computing is not just the utility computing services, but includes all the higher level services that enhance and build service values. This is part of movement from IT centric to the business centric services areas, a wider service continuum with utility services for infrastructure at one end, and with business centric software and business process delivered as a service from the cloud at the other. So comparing this ROI of cloud and traditional IT solution, what it gives us is, so just think about the comparison. Think about the comparison points, compare ROI of cloud and traditional IT solutions. Okay. So there are number of things to consider when deciding whether to use the cloud computing. Many of them were described in the establishing your cloud vision. So they will usually include the ROI. If you propose a cloud-based project, you will be asked how the ROI compares with that of the traditional solution. How do you answer this question? So to make the trade-offs between the factors involved, you need a model of how your project will achieve the ROI. So this model will typically include the assets, revenues, workloads, costs, time to deliver, features, then quality, and scale. So it can be in your head or it can be captured by a more or less sophisticated computer modeling tool. So much of the model will be based on the normal financial management factors, such as the relation between the investment, revenue, cost, and returns. So some of these factors will be affected by consideration that are special to the cloud computing. So this section will illustrate the process by showing how our 3 example companies assess the ROI of their cloud solutions. The illustration use the simplified spreadsheet model which are available for download. So basis of ROI calculations. So ROI is generally defined as the ratio of money gained or lost on an investment to the return of money. So when an investor puts money into a venture in expectation of a return, the calculation of ROI is straightforward. So our third example company, VI provides an illustration of this. When the term ROI is used in corporate environment, as with first 2 example companies, the situation is more complicated in principles. So ROI can still be calculated as the gain from the investment divided by the cost of the investment. So where the gain is the financial improvement resulting from the investment less the cost of investment, but it is not always easy to determine what the improvement is or what the cost is, particularly when the investment result in an annual profit or saving for the foreseeable future rather than one of the benefit. So for that one calculation is given, but I have not included it in the here in the slides. Okay, so measuring and tracking of the ROI. Clearly, normal financial models showing revenue, capital and operational expenditure and cost are the main models from which the ROI is calculated. So for cloud projects, you should also look at the indicators of health of the 4 ROI drivers described now in this chapter. So utilization, time compression, scale, and quality. So these are often leading indicators of project ROI. So first is the utilization. Utilization is the key factor that affects the productivity, as we have just now seen how the utilization is there. So at the infrastructure level, the instance to asset ratio shows the number of guest operating system instances to the physical resource assets. So this is the key metric for IaaS providers. The tenancy to instance ratio measures the number of tenants per resource. So this ratio is important to the providers of PaaS, SaaS, both. So for PaaS, it is the number of separate platform environments per platform instance. For SaaS, it is the number of clients partitions per application instance. Then CPU utilization and memory utilization are the important to provide are the important providers, we can say, and to the IaaS and PaaS consumers. PaaS providers and SaaS providers should look at them in a conjunction with the workload. So if the CPU and memory utilizations are low, then the cost reductions can be achieved by allocating more workload to each of the resources. Then consumers should, of course, monitor the cost and should look at it in conjunction with the workload. If the payment is directly related to the resource use, that is pay by the drink, so then the cost should track the workload. So if there is an element of time-based payment, pay as you go kind of, then this may not be the case, and there may be scope to lower the cost by tuning the resource usage. Then next is the second one is the time compression. So these metrics relate to the factors like speed, getting there more quickly. So for the consumers of cloud services, the speed of provisioning is an important metric. Speed of provisioning is a crucial thing for any of the service providers. Speed of provisioning contribute to the speed of cost reduction, which can provide long-term indicator of success. Then next is the scale. Scale of operation is discussed already in the size. Okay, breaking new ground. So workload is probably the best IT measure of this. It should be looked at in conjunction with revenue and the cost. Cloud provides, including the providers of the private cloud, will also monitor their investment in IT resources. And then the quality. The importance of quality is explained under the quality point itself. The basic QoS can be measured in terms of availability, reliability, recoverability, responsiveness, and throughput. You may also wish to monitor the manageability and the security. So these are all described for the services that you consume under establishing requirement. The descriptions apply equally to the services that you provide, which is what we are concerned with here. So you should monitor user satisfaction. You cannot rely on your own assessments of the quality that you deliver. So it is the best to do this proactively. There is a well-known and successful voice over the IP supplier that at the end of each call gives the user the opportunity to comment on the call quality through a simple web form. So by contrast, there is another provider that through excellent in many aspects require complaints on quality to be made to its help desk. But there are many competing providers. It is easier to switch to a different one than to complain, as that is what some users are doing. So consumer or the customer retention is the powerful indicator of quality. Revenue efficiencies measured as a combination of margin increase per unit revenue and rate of increase of annual income can also help you to determine whether you are succeeding in your attempt to respond to competitive pressure by raising the quality. Okay, so these are the measures used for building the ROI from cloud computing. Okay, it will be included in the notes as well. So the challenge Challenges in front of cloud computing are already we have discussed in our first unit and our previous unit also, but that part as a part of this particular bit of the chapter we will see. And the cloud computing in use, last two bits are remaining, so we will see them in our next lecture. Okay, any doubt? In just 2-3 days I will share the notes of this chapter. Okay, because last chapter is remaining from my side. I will finish up with that as soon as possible, and then I will share the notes with you. Okay, many of the students are pinging personally to me, but don't worry, I will share the notes. Only 2 chapters are remaining, so start for the study from now itself. And once again, the notice from your project coordinator, that is fill the shared Excel sheet about your work done from the project point of view. Okay, so we will stop over here. If you have any doubt, you can ping me here or ping me personally on my WhatsApp, and you can put now your attendance and leave. Have a lunch break. Thank you.